Hey there, it's James with Coldwell Banker. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to register and receive a free copy of this video with 6 enormous pricing mistakes that folks are making when they decide to list their home. So with that being said, let's get into the 6 mistakes. Okay, number 1, pricing your home to unsold properties versus sold properties. Why is this a mistake? Well, when you're looking at pricing your home, you do want to price it to what actually has sold in the marketplace. You don't want to price your home based on what other homes are in the market for, because those haven't closed yet. So we don't know if the market is going to pay that price for that home. And so when we're pricing your home, you do want to look at actual hard data to see where the value is and what the market is willing to pay. I liken it to, do you want to live in fantasy land or in reality? There are times where homeowners do want to live in fantasy land and they price it based on what's currently on the market. But really, that's a gauge of where homes may be going to, but not quite exactly there yet. Because if you don't have people who are paying those prices, then the reality is that they're probably not going to pay that price for your home as well. So you really want to look at what has sold and then price your home based on that information. All right, number 2, the second mistake that I see homeowners make when they're pricing their home is they try to get full value for renovations or upgrades that they've done in the past. And so I've seen homeowners who, may have put some stone countertops or new appliances or a new roof within the last 5 years. And they typically want to get 100 cents on the dollar for those renovations that they made. But typically the market doesn't respond to those renovations the way that a homeowner would look at it. There was a report recently done that said typically renovations get about 60 to 70% of what the actual dollar amount spent on those renovations was. And so when you're looking at, again, pricing your home and you have renovations or upgrades that you've done, and those upgrades or renovations are not brand new and they have some use to them, then typically you shouldn't expect to get 100% of the value back. I liken it to any other consumer good. I mean, when you buy a car or a computer, anything that you use, once it's in use, there's depreciation involved, and typically it's not worth what you pay. And so that would be the second mistake that homeowners make, is they try to get 100% of the value associated with renovation costs and upgrades. Okay, so number 3, what we call the endowment effect. And that actually, this is a psychological term that's used, and it's when we have the tendency to overvalue things because we own them. And I can't tell you how many times I've come across homeowners who think that their home or something in particular in regard to their home is worth more than, say, a neighbor's. And when you really dig into why, it really comes down to, well, you have this emotional attachment to it because it's yours. And so you tend to value that more than, say, a homeowner next door would. Well, when you look at it, or when you bring that item to market, there's no emotional attachment there. They're looking at it on a comparable basis to other properties or other homes that have sold on the market. And that's how they're going to look at it. It's strictly from a numbers standpoint. There's no emotional attachment involved typically for the buyer. And so again, if you've done an upgrade to a backsplash or installed new appliances, and you really have an affinity to those items, typically the market's not going to have the same affinity as you do to that item, and therefore they're not going to value it as much as you do, which in turn is not going to translate to a higher sales price. So that's the next mistake that homeowners typically tend to make. Okay, on to mistake number 4. And this typically is the most fatal mistake that I see homeowners make. And it's pricing a property based on what they need to net so they can take those funds and move it to the next one. The market doesn't care. The market doesn't care what you need to take out of that home. And so when you price a property based on, hey, I need to take, $200,000 from this sale to move it to the next property, so we're going to price it at X so we get that $200,000. That's just not a smart way to price your home, because again, really it goes back to what properties have sold for. If you were in the seller's shoes and a buyer came to you and said, hey, I can only pay you $500,000 for a home that's worth $600,000 because that's all I have. How would you take that situation? It's the same thing. That the inverse of it would be true as well. The market doesn't care what you need to take from the property to move on to the next one. It's all going to be about what the value is of the home. Okay, so the fifth mistake that comes up when pricing your property, and this has to do with Zillow, Zestimates, or other online automatic valuation models. This can be a very dangerous tool to use if you take it as gospel. Zillow has even come out and said that half of their Zestimates are off by up to 8%. And so what that means, if we're looking at a $750,000 home in Orange County, that can be off, up to $60,000, one way or the other. And so if your agent were to come to you and say, hey, I can sell your home anywhere between $690,000 and $810,000, and there's a 50% chance that I'll do that. Quite frankly, you should look at using a different agent. And that's why those estimates, they're really not meant to replace an agent who's going to actually do a walkthrough and dig really deep into the comps to see what the home's worth. Those models were set up really as a quick and dirty kind of macro level overview of what the home may be worth. As I had mentioned, based on where you fall on that 50% of the accurate data could really affect the value of your home. So you don't really want to use those as gospel in terms of what your home is worth. Okay, so now on to our last pricing mistake that folks make. And that's once the home is on the market, is taking the approach of a set it and forget it type price. There's a fine art / science to pricing a property, but where you really want to listen to what the market says, and you want to get feedback from the agents who are showing your property or potential buyers who are coming through your property. And if you're not listening to what they have to say, then you're really shooting yourself in the foot. If there's a common theme that comes up during that process and your price isn't reflective of that, then you can really hurt yourself in the long run, because typically if it's a common theme, then future potential buyers who come through the property are going to think the same thing, and it may affect how long your property is on the market for. So you definitely want to be in tune with what's going on with the tours and the showings to help you gauge if you've priced the property correctly, and then make any future adjustments as necessary. So that's the sixth mistake that folks tend to make when they're pricing their property. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them for you. You can reach me at my contact information that's going to pop up on the next screen here. But again, thank you for watching, and look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.